Hey, this is Skullgirdle, and welcome to transitioning from a societal construct of gender to something else. And our guest tonight is Dani Ashes of the infamous Cemetery Confessions, but we all introduce ourselves first, so I'll just go first. We like to end with our guests because then you remember our guest the best. So I am Skullgirdle. Also, my given name is Michelle. I have a YouTube channel of my own called Skullgirdle RIP. I also work with Obscura Undead, and I do this and I write some reviews, a few here and there. And my pronouns are she and her, or they and them.
Cool.
And
I'm
yeah,
Azzy. My chosen name is Azzy. um, I don't know. I chill out here while Michelle hosts, and I co-host, and I run Obscura Undead, which does all kinds of things. Um, but mostly I'm just here to hit buttons.
And I'm Danny. I do a podcast called Cemetery Confessions where we have guests on and talk about goth stuff. And I also run, I mean, I don't run it, but I put up the Belfry Network shows, which is a whole group of really talented people that do their own content, and then I just host it. So I can't really take credit for that. But yeah, and I drink a lot of alcohol. That's about it.
I have been not wanting to drink the last few weeks, but tomorrow being the inauguration and the end of, ugh, I'm going to celebrate with
Mm.
probably grapefruit vodka, the thing I drink the most of.
I forgot to say that my pronouns are they, them.
Oh, my pronouns are also they, them.
And I try to set such a good example.
It wasn't good enough, Mom.
I know, mom failed. Mom fucking failed. All right, so okay, so what we're actually talking about today and why we have Danny on is talking about transitioning from whatever you were assigned, whatever was given to you, ingrained into you, however you lived your life before into, and I just say something else because at this point I feel like a lot of people are going by non-binary, and a lot of people happens to be a lot of people that I know. That doesn't mean a lot of people in general, just kind of people I surround myself with. And I think that we are, I hope, on the verge of, we should be redefining gender, just kind of
Mm.
redefining it. And so I say something else because I don't know that non binary is going to be where everybody stays once we have a better idea, I guess. I said that probably quite badly. And if y'all don't realize, I am talking to two people who are non binary, which is also part of trans. And it probably sounded weird saying the
Well,
word trans. Is
Well,
that
depending on
correct?
who you talk to, not
Oh,
everyone who is non-binary identifies as trans. I
Correct. Yeah.
do, but
okay.
that's me. Not everyone does.
I've seen experts and read a little bit too, so I made the assumption. I apologize.
A lot of people these days say that it falls under the trans category. But yeah, not every. I'm comfortable with it now,
Mhm.
but I know not everybody. Some of my non-binary friends prefer not to identify as trans.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's interesting because it's, well, different definitions as many as there are people. But I've had someone correct me, more than one person though, to say that non-binary is trans.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean,
I,
people have strong opinions about it. That's kind of the nature of these, I guess, neologisms you would call them, that
mhm.
creating these terms for emerging experiences or emerging
Right.
terms for existing experiences where uh, they're used differently, and then over time, people generally come to a agreement about
Right.
how they're used. But
Well, do you think that gender studies are getting more um, accepting in general of differences? And do you think they're progressing and kind of going to a place where we can actually better understand gender outside of traditional
well, I mean,
traditional
it's certainly more visible going back to probably in recent memory, unfortunately, Caitlyn Jenner was in, as far as mainstream media goes, she was an example of trans people when there weren't really very many examples of those. And I'm not a fan of Caitlyn Jenner. I'd point people to like Laverne Cox or somebody, but
Yeah.
I think that, and Elliot Page just came out, and those kinds of things are happening. They're more common, so I think they're happening in broader conversations. So I think the needle is moving. There's obviously still a lot of bigotry and misinformation and things like that, and that's always going to be there. I think it's lessening. I think especially now, not that I'm a fan of Biden, but a lot of the, from a systemic legal level, a lot of the restrictions placed on trans people and queer people in general that Trump put into place are going to be rolled back. And so those sort of civil liberties will hopefully come back into the conversation. But it's hard to say. Like at my job, a former coworker of mine was also non-binary, and everyone at work has been very friendly about it and fine with it and accommodating. But I also work with not leftists, but like liberal democratic kind of people. So, and also our company is generally progressive, so the people that aren't probably think, well, if I'm a dick about it, HR is gonna get on my case. So I don't know. I think there's definitely more exposure in general.
I think from the side on the outside, it seems like it to me. But then again, I talk to artists, musicians, goths, and just I talk to a lot of weirdos.
Yeah, we're all in our
And
own
that
bubbles,
tends,
you know.
right, right. And I work in a company that they're trying, they're trying from the top, but
We
in the world of finance.
yeah. Well, as the old people die off. Um, the
Sadly.
the the episode we recorded a couple nights ago, one of the people I was talking to said that they have never had a political conversation with someone at a goth club. And I was like, wow, I think I've never
Seriously?
gone to a goth club and not had a political conversation. So it does
Yeah,
to some
that's
degree just depend on who you're around, you know.
right. And the sad matter is that people make this a political discussion instead of a human rights discussion, which I personally think it's
Sure.
a human rights discussion.
I personally, like, my opinion on that is that, at least in our country, in our political system, human rights issues are political issues.
Yeah, I would say they're both
Yeah,
also.
yeah. Well, and I think that there's a trend kind of towards that in other countries as well, with some of the stuff I've seen. Because every once in a while I go and look at the news in the world because I just get sick and tired of oranges on my screen. And I see things that are a little too similar. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of good. There's a lot of good out there as well. So what has okay, so Dani, when did you start transitioning to non-binary? When did you decide to come come out? It's called coming out, right?
When did I decide to come? When did I decide to come out?
Yeah, not
So
today.
yeah, well, let's see. So coming out as non-binary, I kind of, at least in recent history, I knew I was non-binary maybe 3-ish years ago, and maybe a year or so before that, I was kind of starting to, I was going through a huge shift in my perception of the world and
Mhm.
reading a lot of philosophy and metaphysics and ontology and trying to understand um, what reality is, what it means to be, what is the self, what is experience, that kind of thing. So I was kind of breaking that down, and gender was in the back of my mind. So I think I came out personally, privately, about 3 years ago, and dealt with family stuff. And then maybe about a couple years ago, that was public, and that's kind of been ongoing. But if I go farther back, for me as a kid, well, I didn't know I didn't even know this was a thing until maybe 8-ish years ago, being trans or being non-binary. But I was always interested in the first sort of alternative band that I was exposed to was called Striper, which is a Christian like hair metal band. And even though they're a Christian band, their presentation is effeminate because it's a hair metal band. And I was always really drawn to that look. And then when I started getting into goth, it was very much the same thing where, like, I remember the first time I saw a man wearing a skirt, it was just like, oh my God, we can do that. And that was always a struggle with my parents growing up, where I was like, well, I'd like to wear nail polish because it's pretty. I'd like to, I remember even when I was like 10, my babysitter came over and she was doing her makeup, and I said, can you do my makeup? And she did. And then my parents came home and berated me for looking like a girl because makeup wasn't for girls. So I was always interested in that kind of thing. I remember like going to Hot Topic once with my dad, and I wanted to get my first mesh shirt, like the fishnet shirt, because I was like, well, I can be a cool goth person. And my dad was like, no, you can't, that's for girls. And then this wonderful, like 6.5 foot tall woman who worked at the store got into this huge argument with my dad about how it's not just for women and anyone can wear any type of clothing. And I was like, I was so happy inside that was happening, because I was like, yeah, you tell him. But I was very, I grew up in a very strict house, so everything was a fight with my parents to express myself in any way. And I didn't necessarily associate those stereotypically feminine looks with gender. I just wanted to express myself. And even now, like I can get into the philosophy of gender or the way that I view gender and sex and that kind of thing. But when it comes down to it, I just want to be me. So after, spending a lot of time in the last 6-7 years thinking about these bigger questions of the human experience, gender started to make less and less sense to me, just in my own personal experience of, like, sometimes I do want to feel super masculine, as, the culturally constructed opinion of what masculine is. Or I want to feel, sometimes I want to feel super feminine. Sometimes I want to feel somewhere in the middle. Sometimes I have dysphoria around different parts of my body that I think that I don't like, or my genitals or whatever. And sometimes I'm perfectly fine with it. And in general, I don't have a lot of dysphoria, but it does happen. And so I think just throughout my life, it was a process of trying to understand what the expectations of society were for men and women, and then trying to understand why that didn't make sense to me. Like, I remember even when I was like a Christian in high school, telling my parents, like, men can wear skirts because, the only reason pants are seen as masculine in America is because there was a lot of horseback riding. And if you look at other countries, skirts or dresses for men are really common. So it's just a cultural thing. It doesn't have to be gendered, or some, they wear makeup in different countries. But for some reason, I think probably because I was still in this Christian framework, I didn't connect like gender fluidity with that idea. It was just like, I'm still a man because obviously I only have two options. I just want to wear feminine clothing. And you absolutely can be a man and wear feminine clothing and still be cis. Like, I'm not saying that makes you non-binary or anything, but it's my whole life has just kind of been a process of trying to understand myself, and then gender, which gender is kind of the self in a lot of ways.
Right, that makes sense.
I would be really interested, I know you're talking to me, but I would be really interested to hear what Azzy's experience was like coming to terms with gender stuff.
Yeah, that's where we're going next. Anyway, Avi, you weren't going to get out of
Oh,
But
I
I can
wasn't
drink
gonna
some
be able
whiskey.
to escape.
that.
Well, I mean, for me, like, uh, growing up, I grew up with brothers, and I always thought like, oh, I must just be a tomboy, but I don't feel like a boy. Oh, okay, then like I should feel like a girl, but I don't feel like a girl. And I felt this way ever since I was like very, very little. And I I I was never really drawn to particularly masculine things or particularly feminine things. Like I you know, didn't really understand like, okay, why does doing this have to be, boyish? Why is doing this girlish?
Yeah.
But for a very long time, because I didn't feel like a girl, I didn't feel like I was a girl. Like I refused to do anything that would be construed as girly simply because I did not want the reaction from my family of, oh, thank God, finally,
Mm.
at
Yeah.
all. Especially like because I also like never showed sexual interest in anyone like long through puberty, and I made a comment about David Bowie once, and my grandma like stopped because my grandparents raised me, stopped and was just like, oh my God, I am so happy I thought you were a lesbian. And I was just like, what the
Uh,
fuck does that have to do with anything? And I think I was 16 at the time. Um, so I had the biggest obstacle for me in kind of coming to grips with who I am as a non-binary person has been getting over these sort of internalized notions that it's
mm.
okay to feel feminine sometimes,
Yeah.
because it's not, it's my own self like internalization of like it's not okay because I don't want that attention from the people around me to finally be just like, finally you're acting like a girl.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that has been
I feel that.
yeah, yeah, well, it's been one of my biggest like challenges, because it's just like you, Danny. Some days I feel more masculine. Some days I feel more feminine. Most days I'm just like, I'm just gonna, be me, and that's somewhere in the middle that just exists, and I'm perfectly happy with that. But I've had dysphoria pretty much my whole life. I thought it was general body hate
Mm.
related to my weight, but as I started to grow more comfortable with, this whole idea of being non-binary, I realized it's not that I'm uncomfortable with my weight, it's the fact that I'm uncomfortable with the fact that like I have female sex characteristics, and primary and secondary. And so that causes me a lot of dysphoria when I think about it too much. But it didn't get really bad until I was in my early 20s and I had a miscarriage. And I realized, oh shit, my body is capable of doing this very female thing.
Mm.
Freaked me out really bad. And like coming to grips with that was kind of like the beginning of, why do I feel this way? And my sort of exploration of like, what does it mean to be non-binary, because I, through the lens of my family and through the lens of just culture in general, thought that I was a freak, an anomaly, and there was something very, very wrong with me, and that I was broken. And then finding that there were other people who like were coming out and talking about their experiences, and like being exposed to that was just hugely powerful, and made me realize, like, as I started coming to grips with it, how important it is for me to talk about like my experiences and these sorts of things. And honestly, when I came out, it was shortly after you did, Danny, and you gave me the courage to your post. I remember that very, very distinctly. I know I say that a lot, like, oh, you inspired me to do this and this and this. It's not that I'm a stalker. I just exist on the internet.
It's very sweet.
But like I saw that, and I thought a lot to myself, like, people talking about it is really important. Normalizing this is important. Having these support networks is important because there is nothing about me or anyone else that's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Michelle? Do you feel a connection to your gender?
That is a very, I am going through a, trying to decide how I really feel about gender and the
Mm.
constructs, because I feel like I do identify as a woman.
Hmm.
I like being a woman. I'm good with it. I Somebody has to be a cishet who's not a complete fuckhole, but I'm trying. I'm trying. But at the same time, I have gone through several experiences where people from the back thought I was a man, especially seeing me walk when they didn't see the front, which is so very obviously feminine because gigantic cha-chas kind of make people think that. But, and if I ever take gender tests or any of that kind of stuff, because I'm just like, huh, I wonder what it says. Like actual, I don't know if any of them are valid, but not a BuzzFeed test. When I do that, I come up straight in the middle, right in the middle, masculine, feminine characteristics. So I just don't really think about it, except I'm thinking about it because I know so many non binary people. And I was like, I come up since I was a teenager taking those kind of tests as I come across them because they're fascinating to me. I have tested right smack in the middle. I have almost never tested more feminine than masculine in any of those kind of tests. So I'm like, what is it about me? Why do I feel like I identify as a woman and I'm fine identifying as a woman. I enjoy a lot of it. And yes, so that's my connection. Why is it that from an outside view with psychiatrists and sociologists written tests, why do I come up right smack in the middle? I mean, it's like 49.9 to 50.1 or 50-50 exactly. It's always been within like 48-52 of those kind of tests for me when I take them. And I'm just like, well, what is it about me that makes me feel fine being
Hmm.
called a woman and identifying with this gender? So while I still have some of those same characteristics, and I don't like some of the things that people think are super feminine, I don't like some of those characteristics and the societally created demure woman or she's a real lady, things like that, I grate against them all the time.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I still identify as a woman. So actually, through knowing so many non-binary and trans people, it's making me question where I actually sit there, and not if I'm non-binary, because I'm starting to think that binary is just such bullshit, but that why do I feel okay identifying as a woman when I still have all some of these same characteristics? And I was the kid who would climb trees and would do daredevil bike stuff and would just stay outside and play all day. And I didn't, and but I also did girly stuff. Okay, my Barbies were strippers from the age of 8 years old. My Barbies were strippers, and they had to strip to earn clothing. But I loved, well, specifically Barbies. I didn't like baby dolls or anything like that. But I love makeup. I love things that are traditionally feminine, considered traditionally feminine. Obviously, makeup doesn't have a gender. Clothing doesn't have a gender. We could actually restructure our clothing system to describe it by fit. Just put the fucking
Yeah.
measurements on there.
Hmm.
This is
I'm
bigger
all
in the
for that.
shoulders, bigger in, yeah. So, I mean, I am actually struggling with it right now. So these kind of conversations are infinitely interesting to me, and I have a
Well,
unending patience for them, even as someone who fits into what people expect, kind of, except I don't.
if I can speak to that a little bit, I mean, maybe after the first song we can get into like how I perceive gender, but I think that experience is completely normal, and I think the reason it feels weird is just because of the societal expectations of this is supposed to be feminine, this is supposed to be masculine, and those have specific roles, and but realizing that those roles are arbitrary and not some sort of essentialist character that you can't get away from, gives everybody freedom to just experiment with doing whatever. You can be a cis man and wear a dress and Like,
Right.
I think it gives people the freedom. And I think a lot of, like, for me too, some of my gender dysphoria isn't because of necessarily I feel like my who I am inside doesn't match the outside. I think it's some of it just comes from engaging with and being in um a culture that I can't get away from being influenced by. I'm always going to have some of that interpolated into how I see the world, and then I have to kind of continually deconstruct that. And like kind of like in the same way that women can have internalized misogyny, right? Where we are embedded in the world for better or worse, and that's going to affect us. And it starts at birth, right? Like, why do people ask, are you having a boy or girl? Because we start imagining what that baby's gendered life will be or is supposed to be. We start living someone else's life for them. And because everything is so heavily gendered and baked into how people perceive themselves, like that, so there are cis people who have very strong connections with, I am a man or I am a woman, and these are the things I do as a man and these are the things I do as a woman. But I think even for them, in the back of their mind, they're still questioning, like, what is it to be a man? What is it to be a woman? Am I following these socially constructed norms to express that? And you can see that in the fear of people that are like, if I'm a guy, can I hug my guy friend and say that I love you? Or does that take away from my masculinity? Does that take away from my gender? So, and then the problem becomes that fear of losing your gender. People project that onto others, onto the gender queer community. And I think that's where a lot of the bigotry and stuff comes from. Because people in general tend to assume, especially white people, tend to assume the rest of the world operates and perceives the world in the way that we perceive it. And then when we encounter someone that says they don't, they get labeled as deviant or morally wrong or needing to be fixed. And so I think that just because someone might have a strong sense of their gender, helping people realize that doesn't mean that's everyone else's experience is important. And I think the goth scene is pretty good about that in a lot of ways, because we are like, well, we are the other. We aren't like the mainstream, so we have an experience of being the other. But something I've talked about before is that we can still kind of rest too calmly in that idea and then still perpetuate bigoted heteronormative expectations because we think we are the enlightened, the weirdos. So we have to talk about these things so that we aren't perpetuating patriarchal ideologies and conservative religious ideologies without realizing it, because it is so baked into every single thing that we do.
Right. And sometimes the greatest rebellion you can do is just to live your life as you're going to live it.
Yeah.
But I think also for a lot of us, when we don't have the ideas, I call them the popular ideas or the mainstream ideas. In this case, we're talking gender, like what it is and how you should fall into line to be that gender, to exemplify that gender. Then people think you're weird, and you learn to hide it, and you learn to whether the severity is that you are a man born in a woman's body, woman born in a man's body, non-binary, somewhere in between, if you're ace, if you're demi, all that stuff. I know that's sexuality and not gender, but all that stuff combined is considered to be other and weird. And you're asked about some of these things so many times that, sometimes you'll come up with elaborate lies. I don't know if y'all have done that. I have. And then sometimes you will just do anything to avoid the question, including just leave the room.
I kind of reached a breaking point when I came out publicly. I reached a breaking point where I was like, I know I'm non-binary, but I'm pretending to be cis just so that my life is easier. But
Mm-hmm.
even though it simplified things, I was dying on the inside, and I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And it's the same, it's the same with, they talk about like masking in the autism community, people on the spectrum, where it's like, you have to, even maybe if you don't understand it, you have to force yourself to behave in certain ways in certain situations to not be ostracized or made fun of, or people give you weird looks. So it is like, it's like the same thing where you talk about it and you're like, this is, just because someone is autistic doesn't mean that it's wrong. It's just, it's a natural part of evolution. It's just how biological organisms develop in different ways. And they're demonizing and putting a moral label on these things is hurtful, harmful. They talk about the suicide rate within the trans community because of these kinds of things. It's doing demonstrable harm to people.
Yes.
So yeah, it breaking down those hard binaries, I think, is a really important thing.
I agree. Okay, now on that light tone, what's the first song we have coming up? Because I had forgotten there were songs until you mentioned it.
Yes. So the first song I picked, I decided to go with just songs that had some kind of meaning to me. This first song, whether they were good or not, you could be the judge of that. This first song is Dark Romantics by The Awakening, and I chose it because this was the first goth song I ever heard. I was like maybe 13, and I remember hearing it, and I had been listening to a lot of metal. And the first time I heard this song, I was like, oh, wow, this is something I had never imagined. But I knew immediately this was the type of thing I had been looking for. And so in that sort of canon of my goth life, this was a sort of foundational song.
statue with no name. Oh, we are the dark romantics, in our candles glow. We are the dark romantics, and our dreams are where the poets go. We will be the passionate, the delicate. Oh, we can see all that God has given is
I'm back from that, and we are unmuted.
All right. Well, song ended while we weren't really paying attention.
I was paying
So
attention.
okay. Well, as
My
you're paying
one job
attention,
is to push buttons.
I have no idea what's going on. I'm just like blah 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 blah. Okay, so what
It's
was
fine,
it,
you know.
Dani?
If you watch TikTok, goth bimbos have been coming back into fashion. So
What's a
What?
goth bimbos, you're not
What's a
hip with
goth-
the kid stuff.
bimbo?
We'll talk about it after, maybe.
Oh no, we're gonna do the thing we usually do. Goth bimbo.
Yeah, it's just like, you know, the bimbo, but you're a goth.
I know Mall Goth is coming back pretty hard.
Oh, it's
Oh,
just
no.
TNA.
To the point where, like...
No, it's not just TNA.
the point where, like, Killstar has a Mall Goth line. Trip Shit is reselling for hundreds of
But
dollars on eBay.
if you look up mall goth on TikTok, you're not going to see mall goths very much. You will see a few goths. What you're going to see is, again, SoundCloud rap looking kids with I don't know what the look is based on, but they don't have anything to do with goth. Mall goth is like a look, but still some goth kids are just wearing the mall goth look. Right?
It makes sense that actual goths would not want to wear mall goth style. At least the ones who lived through that phase of goth.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, if you don't DIY and you don't have a lot of resources, there you go. Most people without the resources wind up just wearing black t-shirt and jeans, honestly. Because you don't have any resources.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just don't have a problem with mall goth, but that's again after my time maybe that's during my absenteeism.
Yeah, but being a bimbo as far as I'm aware now in youth culture now is more heavily like feminist and like pro LGBTQIA plus and stuff, but it's sort of the kind of like airheaded you know, men are toys kind of thing, but it's very like progressive. It's interesting.
That sounds
seeing a
pretty
lot of
Riot
inflated-
Girls, so...
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of pictures of inflated breasts and shit like
Yeah,
that.
I wouldn't Google image it. You'd have to go on social media apps and stuff.
Oh,
like
got
TikTok
it.
specifically,
Got it. Okay.
Yeah,
New
Google
bimbos and
image
bimbofication.
Bimbofication is a whole other thing.
Oh, I'll just stop now. I just gotta stop. You know what? We were having an interesting conversation. So let's hear about your ideas on gender. And I'm not crossing my prove it to me. My fingers are cold.
What?
And my armpits are less cold. You know what? I'm just gonna stick them in my crotch.
That's fine with me. Yeah, so gender. So I guess the first thing to mention would be sex and gender are two different categories. Sex is generally biologically based, although I would, and maybe we can get into this later, I would not say it. I also wouldn't say sex is binary.
No.
But that's a whole other thing. Gender, though, is more complicated than that. So there's this quote by, and I think Judith Butler used this in the interview that you said you watched, by existentialist philosopher Simon Beauvoir, however you say that, who said, "One is not born a woman, one becomes a woman." And that, for me, that's kind of summarizes the cultural, social, metaphysical reality of gender, where gender is an expression of something. Gender is not an expression of something in yourself. Gender is yourself. So it's deep-seated in a way that it's intensely, it's personal, but gender is constituted by what we do. So it's not a uniform, but fashion can act to present gender to the world. It's also an action. Oh, my wife is texting me. Let me make sure. Yeah, okay, that's fine. It's the things we do. It's like, so if you've ever heard of code switching, where you, in certain different contexts, you will change the language you use, change the way your body moves, modulate your voice, those kinds of things, so that you control how you're perceived in certain contexts. That's part of action, constitutes gender in a way that we're performative, not in that we're doing a performance, but we are acting, we are doing an action to present gender. But I think more than that, it's we have to realize it's placed within a local environment and a broader cultural environment, and a where like cultural norms and roles come from. But it also, there's a political aspect and there's a historical aspect, and that I think helps get to the idea that gender is not this something that's innate, something that is somewhere deep inside that doesn't change, and that we can't we access, but we can't change it. I think gender is a constant negotiation between culture and like what is expected of people, and how we react to that, and then how culture reacts to that. So like, for example, how you take up space in the world, how you stand, how you sit. Do you cross your legs? Do you open your legs? What's your posture like? How do you what's the tone of your voice? How assertive are you in various situations? The way that you exist in the world is how people see your gender and how you act out your gender. If we look at being trans, and I guess it's worth mentioning, I'm talking about my own opinion on gender. There is a whole field of feminist literature, trans literature, that there are different theories and perspectives, and so not everyone is going to agree with me. But so I've been reading this book about they're called Los Muches in Mexico. And there are people who are assigned male at birth, but present feminine. And it's something that's accepted in this town, in this local area, and it's generally celebrated. Like, they have a place in their society that people accept, but it's not accepted outside of that area. And then, so that's an example of environment being important. And then if you look at, like, if you try to apply American standards of what trans people are to this group, they don't really fit, because they don't use pronouns in the way that you might expect a trans person to use them. They don't construct like gender roles in the way that you might expect trans people to do them. So that additionally shows it's a cultural thing that can be constructed in certain ways. And in their area specifically, for them, it's also historically rooted in radical leftism, because that town, I can't remember the name of the town, actually it might be in the title of the book. No, it's not. But that town historically was highly resistant to Spanish imperialism. And so there, for them, that third gender is historically rooted, and so that's to point out that gender extends beyond just the body. And there's plenty of other examples across other indigenous cultures, like First Nation people that have, I don't know them off the top of my head, but that have like two-spirit in various First Nation tribes here, that have different genders and gender roles. So that is kind of the line of thinking that I got into when I was asking these like ontological questions of, does gender exist? And if it exists, how does it exist? And I really like Butler's performativity theory because it's about gender being something that we enact, something that we take action, we exert energy to bring forth, and then that performance of gender is situated within the material world that interacts both ways. It's kind of like a discursive interaction. So it's contextual.
Like when you're little, when you're first born, it's assigned to you. Everybody tells you what you are, but the performative repetition just keeps instilling it until it's ingrained in you.
Yeah, it congeals. She would say it congeals the habitual action and choice you make every day congeals into a gender.
Right.
So
it kind of makes me wonder if we didn't do this to our children. I call it pinkification. When you go to a baby shower for a girl baby, to which I always will take beige or yellow, sometimes green. I never ever take pink or blue. If it's a girl, I might take blue. If it's a boy, I might take pink. I will never take whatever genderified thing there is. But if we didn't do that to our kids, how many genders do you think we would have if we just didn't control it at all?
Well, yeah, I mean,
part of
the problem is you have doctors who are performing surgery on intersex babies aside for them, so there's a whole, it's there's a system in place that tries to enforce these expectations that are completely arbitrary.
Daniel, a lot of what you're talking here about code switching and what you were talking about before we went to our first music break on sort of like constructing your gender identity when you might be cis as this sort of like bastion that you can't step outside of. Something that I've been coming to terms with in the last couple of months is that I found myself doing that with being non-binary, is that I was kind of applying that same wall building and bastion creating to this whole like non-binary identity, trying not to do anything that might be too masculine or do anything that might be too feminine or to step outside of that, because it's like I wanted to avoid the questions from people of, well, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? But I think that the whole idea that it's an issue of code switching, and then it depends on situation, who you're talking to, mood that day, anything like that, I think is far closer to the truth, and honestly probably healthier.
There's a big push in the in non-binary spaces to talk about how non-binary people don't owe you androgyny, or there is no non-binary look, right? Where it's not just a gender is more than just the clothes you put on kind of thing. And I think that's to get away from this sort of, these real world experiences like you're kind of talking about, where, oh, you dressed more feminine today, so I can refer to you as she, her, right? That's okay. It's like, no, it's not. My gender is something that I choose and that I act out, and you should respect that. You don't get to decide that for me.
Well, although I do know someone who they said to base on how they look that day. If they look more masculine, he. If they look more feminine, she.
And
I'm
that's
just, my theory
personal
is like,
decision.
yeah, if it changes, if you would let me know, because sometimes I can't tell, and I'm gonna make mistakes pretty much till I die, because that's what
Yeah,
part of life. So I don't give a shit. Just tell me. I don't.
yeah.
I would just like to not dead name, dead gender. I don't know what you use wrong pronouns. I just want to avoid that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think on the other end, you have to also understand that people will make mistakes. Like,
Right.
I misgendered myself last week, and I beat myself up for it. But it was kind of a lesson to, like, you know, it's a I've gone 30, however, well, 30 years of my life before, referring to myself one way, and it's a process
Right.
to change what I have gotten used to.
Yeah.
And kind of
Well,
going back to what sorry, go ahead.
oh, back to what Azzy was talking
Yeah.
about putting expectations on yourself. I am non-binary. I must do this. If you think about it, like, why would you step from one uncomfortable box into another?
Habit.
Yeah.
I understand hiding large parts of who you are just to exist in
It's
mainstream
because I
society.
honestly say it's habit. It's because even though you might be breaking out of this binary idea of gender and like these culturally imposed notions of gender, that doesn't mean that you break out of the culturally imposed notions of how to express that.
Yep.
So habit.
Yeah, and I think I said that in my post about when I changed my name, that um, I was like, for a long time, it didn't make sense to me that my parents, who had never met me and didn't know me, named me based in their religious system, and I
Hmm.
was therefore for all time supposed to use that name. Like, intellectually, I hated that, but then also what you're saying, I think the way I phrased it was that it's kind of was just like wearing an ugly old shoe, that it's comfortable
Nope.
just because you've worn it for so long, even though you don't like it. Um, and it's hard to change that, you know.
Yeah, and I'm of the opinion, having spent a lot of time in the pagan world and having just nommed to whatever, I was like, change your name like your fucking socks if you want to. Just
Yeah.
change your name. It's your name. It's your body. It's your person, and your name can change as you change.
Hmm.
It can. Legally changing it, a little bit more difficult. I mean, are either of y'all going to legally change your name to your chosen name? Does it matter that much to you?
Go ahead, Ezzy.
I feel like I don't need a name on a piece of paper to tell me who I am. So it doesn't really matter that much to me. My birth name, my legal name, I use it because I have to for work and I have to for the things that I need to do in order to make a living. So those are the things that do not represent who I am. My job does not represent who I am, and my student loans don't represent who I am, and like all of that other shit. So
Right.
no, I have that compartmentalized and into this make a living
So,
part of my life, and I don't feel like I need who I am as a person crossing over into the what I need to do to survive. I at this point in my life don't feel as though I need those two things to
well, so
intersect.
you think of it like a social security number. Does
Mm,
it function for you about like that?
yeah, kind of. I mean, I
Because
have
honestly,
no.
it's always shocking for me when I see that old name of yours, and I was like, "Wait, who is this?"
Yeah,
'Cause I,
yeah.
I I don't
It's
associate you with
it's
that
it's
person.
still off-putting for me as well, but not enough so for me to change it. It's like when I got married, my husband's just like, "Do you want to take my name?" And I was just like, "Eh." And he's just like, "Well, you don't like your last name." And I'm like, "Yeah, but eh." And then I talked to his mom and she's just like, it's just legal trouble that and like fees and bureaucracy. And I was just like, yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. But no, for me, it's I at this point I do kind of like having the separation between who I am and in my personal life and who I am like I said, in my work life. Although I would honestly like to be called they them at work, that's not gonna happen.
I actually put she, her on my signature file at work, and it is to this date the only one I've ever seen like that at my job. But it says in parentheses, she, her.
I have my pronouns in my email signature.
I have been considering doing that, but again, I work in local government in a very conservative office in a Republican-controlled county, despite the fact that it's really liberal. It's a really odd place. I blame the Scientologists.
I live in one of the greenest cities in the country. You wouldn't think it was in Texas, so I get it.
Yeah, for me, changing my name is about claiming identity, claiming my identity. It's kind of like why I really enjoyed the whole goth name thing, right? When that was really popular, because you're saying I don't have to be known by my given Christian name, by these heteronormative expectations. I can call myself the way I see myself. So I don't. I think the two things I'm going to do. I don't have plans to change my name legally. I'm at some point, once it's passed, I don't know if it's this year or next year, Illinois will allow you to put an X next to your gender instead of M or F. So I'm going to change that, and then
So that would be so nice.
sometime
I would do that. The cis lady would do that. Because fuck that. I don't want to be called Ms. or Mrs.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. And then I think at work this week or next week, I'm going to, there is a whole process for having your name changed in the system. But my good friend who worked at the company, who was also non-binary, they went through that process before they left the company. And so I'm going to be doing that soon. And I think for me, that'll be, as much as I want to say I don't need external validation, it's having something that's like semi-official still. I can't get away from that making me feel like I'm,
like somebody sees
like
you.
it's more real. Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we all like to have things, not that necessarily for all of us make us feel more important than other people, but don't you want to feel as important as other people? I think that that's important for everybody, and I don't think that that's any kind of ego based. We all want to feel like we're seen. And you know what I mean? Like we exist, like we're important, not like we're.
I know that for me
Obvious.
in my workplace, it's not so much an issue for me when people call me by my name, even though I still kind of cringe when they do at work. The issue for me is the pronouns. I don't like miss, and I get called ma'am a lot, and I absolutely hate that, and I get like, oh, she this, her that, and I'm like, okay, that is the only thing that really bothers me, and not so much my given name, my dead name being used at work.
Well,
Yeah, I
because
started correcting people for like saying hey dude or hey man or yes sir or whatever. Like I'm like, don't do
Right.
that.
I'm in the process of removing dude from my vocabulary. I will say my dude to my best friend who is a cishet woman. I will say dude to anybody, but I realize that when it's somebody who is trans, non-binary, etc., it might actually cause some sort of hurt, not realizing that I just use that blanket across the board.
I need to do that, but with bitch.
Maybe I'll start just saying motherfucker instead.
It's very
Hey,
well.
motherfucker. Oh, motherfucker, you should have heard that. I mean,
I don't know. You need something shorter.
buttfucker?
That's one syllable shorter, so yes, on the right track.
I also just unilaterally for insults use dick and cunt, but it doesn't matter. It has no gender thing. In my head, they're two different things, and they are based on genitalia, but the person I'm saying it at or about, their gender is not a part of why I'm calling them that. I was like, just thinking about why you use language in the certain ways that you use it. Okay, so we're to slow down. Let's have another songy songs.
Yeah, let's do that.
Another thong played.
What was the next one? Was it Dani L'Chaim? Or was it?
What?
Oh no! It was nine. What was it? Was this the Sisters of Mercy song?
Yeah.
I was like, I'd have to go look it up, but my Facebook.
It is
pinging at me.
919.
919. So this is probably my favorite sister song, maybe next to like Garden of Delight. I also really like, or Trains maybe, but this was the first sister song I ever heard, and I didn't even know who they were. It came in like a torrent pack that I downloaded from probably LimeWire in high school. And a lot of back then, a lot of the like when you would search Goth and download a bunch of files, it was all like synth pop and VNV, Assemblage 23, Icon of Coil, that kind of stuff. And this was one of the few songs that I was like, oh wow, I really love this. And again, I was still so kind of sequestered in my Christian bubble that I didn't necessarily know who this band was, but I knew I loved the song. And so this is like a really special song for me that I enjoy.
Yeah, so we are definitely back. But I may or may not have had desktop sound on there. So I might have to edit that part to get the sound right, but that's okay. That's why we record a safety.
What do
I
you
don't
mean
know.
record a safety?
So, little shift in topic. You know, I've noticed that you have been sitting at your desk, Dani, with a copy of Dungeon Brill's book. Actually, I noticed it in your getting cute photo. Why can't I hear you?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I muted myself. Sorry.
Oh, okay. You sound like me. Whoops. So if I recall correctly, because it takes me forever to get. It's been taking me forever to get through her book because she says some things that I think are just really fucking stupid.
Mm.
And then I get mad and I put it down and I'm like, I'm not gonna finish reading this.
Wait, well,
Mhm.
by whom?
Dungeon Brill.
Okay, yeah, I don't have that one.
But if I recall correctly, isn't one of her takes that femininity in goth tends to push the masculine towards more androgynous and femininity towards a more hyper femininity?
Yeah.
Oh, I've read that
I
theory.
got really pissed off at that point, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, I mean, it's been a long time since I've read this, and I think when was this published? So this was published.
2006?
Okay. Yeah. So I would say
Wait, was that right?
Oh, I don't know. I just believed you. Let me see. Where is it? I would say that 2008.
Oh, okay.
So I think much like everything else, the gender has changed over time. You know, I've been watching a lot of, well, not a lot. In the last couple weeks, I've watched a few videos of goths being interviewed in the 90s, and they have some very interesting like comments about gender. And you know, like someone was like, oh, you know, dudes can look like chicks and it's hot for the chicks and whatever, like really weird things that I wouldn't hear people say today. So I think that much like any other cultural group, the understanding of gender has evolved over time. I do think, you know, she does say in here that she makes the argument that like you can so bisexuality, for example, she says that it's expected of women to be bisexual in the goth scene, but then when men are bisexual, it's seen as brave or transgressive, whereas it's normalized for women, which she says kind of reinforces a patriarchal view of women as sex objects for the male gaze.
Have you guys experienced that?
It not now, but I think it was more prevalent in years past.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's kind of my thought as well, because I haven't experienced that in several like years, like maybe half a decade, but it was definitely way more common.
Well,
like
that
in
was
the mid 2000s.
My experience in the pagan world in the 90s was the same.
Mm.
But it hasn't been like that in the goth world. But in the goth world in the 90s, I was in the pagan world, so I wasn't in the goth world, so I didn't see that. But yeah, that was, yeah.
Well, and again, I mean, we also have to recognize that, like, because we are talking about complexity, that different areas, you know, depending where you live in the world, are going to be influenced differently and have different perspectives, right? So any of these books on goth can't be taken as while there's definitely consistency and shared values and norms and behaviors, there's always going to be variance between just different groups of people. Even in the same scene, you know, in like Chicago has a pretty big goth scene. There's going to be a lot of people, and they're not all going to feel the same way about everything. You know, you could just point to the what is goth debate, right? Like, so but yeah, to your point, Azzy, she said essentially things like women are expected to be hyper feminine, and when they are more masculine, they aren't regarded with the same sort of like aesthetic respect as when they are hyper feminine. But then men, both masculine and feminine, and especially if they dress feminine, are seen more again as like transgressive, subversive, which she argues is the sort of view of women as not having the same freedom of gender expression as men do, even while the community claims that it is more progressive than mainstream culture. And so yeah, I would say I think that was a bigger issue at one time, but I don't see that as an issue anymore. And you have the through line of like it's always been a joke of the old joke was like goth couples are great because the guy can wear the girl's skirts and borrow her makeup, or if he needs to go to the store, he knows what kind of makeup to buy and that kind of thing. And those jokes are cute and funny, but they've also kind of aged a bit poorly, where it's always assumed that it's a heteronormative couple, it's a guy and a girl. So I think goth culture has evolved in their understanding of gender, and I don't necessarily think that the goths themselves have pushed this. I think it has been the queer community that has pushed changing these types of expectations. And because of their relation to goth culture and many queer people in goth culture, that has changed. I don't think goth was ever necessarily at the forefront of like changing gender norms, even though I think we got like in the 90s we started with goth boys are androgynous and wear strange clothing, but then it kind of stopped there for a while, I think.
I'm just thinking there were guys who wore skirts in the 80s too. I mean, there were punks who wore skirts just to be in your face and say, fuck you, I can wear a skirt, screw your whatever standard way of thinking.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. But yeah, I would actually, I think there still is a lot of hyperfeminization.
Yeah.
Personally. And
It's
quite
definitely
honestly,
not as
I've
bad
known
as it
more
used to be.
bisexual, I would say bisexual men and non-binary people than women in the goth world. It's probably pretty equal now, though, thinking about it. It seems like I know if I just bring up whoever says they are whatever, if I can think about it, like it fucking matters. But yeah, it seems about equal to me now. So I guess that's probably changed. There's still an issue with hyperfeminization as a plus size person, as a fat lady. There's a lot of hyperfeminization of heavier women who want to be seen anywhere close to equal to other women. I mean, and you can look around and see it. So it's not like I'm bringing up anything that isn't easily visible if you're looking for it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's part of, when you talk about gender and breaking down binaries, part of that is realizing that society is built with an assumed type of body in mind. Yes. And if we realize that those assumptions are arbitrary, then it empowers differently, people with disabilities, people on the spectrum, people that aren't the same body type, and just not just gender, people of different genders. That it doesn't have to be that way because that's just the way the world works, or there's some immutable biological imperative, but that these are things we have constructed and that therefore we can change them.
Right. And it's funny, this is way off subject. I just got a tarot deck, as Dee and I were talking about, because I kind of collect tarot decks, about a gender neutral tarot deck, which is the Threads of Fate. But I found one that is inclusive, and it has different races, different genders. It has somebody in a wheelchair. It has somebody with a prosthetic limb. It has heavier people. It just has people of different ages, and like all the court cards are just, you don't know what you're going to get until you flip over the card and look at it. And I almost started crying when I bought it because it's the first inclusive. I was looking for a different deck. It's not even the deck that I was looking for that was inclusive. So we're starting to see more stuff, and of course it's in the LGBTQ plus community. So we're starting to see stuff that's a little bit more inclusive all around. And I
Yeah.
think I think that it's important. I
It's
don't know.
powerful.
I think the more, yes, the more we practice inclusion and acceptance, the more we're going to be able to practice that for genders. And if we just kind of take that world view of people who are different than me are cool. I mean, we don't want them to be assholes, but just because they look different, and that can be, there are so many levels of looking different that, I mean, it's just infinite.
Mhm.
And of being different. And kind of the same thing goes with people who are different from me of conditions. You know, just I call mental health stuff a condition instead. And I totally ripped it off from special books by special kids, which shows kids who are sometimes generally would scare you seeing them on the street because they have a condition that makes them different. And I think that level of inclusion makes the inclusion of gender, well, necessary. I think it should all be included. I don't understand why it's not.
Right.
And
Well,
the longer I live and the more I hear, I'm like, well, why does this, how can you not, I, I just have a hard time with people who don't critically think, who don't think maybe there's more beyond what I've been told. I know, Azzy, are you going to laugh at me?
For thinking that there's not enough people who are capable of critical thinking.
Well, you just think for 2 minutes beyond what you've been taught.
I was having a conversation with my boss about this today. That's why I laughed, actually. And we were talking about how the public education fails at actually teaching people to be critical thinkers.
No, they're making
Yeah.
automatons. It's
I mean,
late stage capitalism. Automatons.
that's a that's people in those rational society like advocates for science-based education have been talking about this for years and years and years, and look at where we are now, where you have so many people talking about QAnon stuff and talking about flat earthers and stuff. It's like they've been saying this is going to happen, we need to change science literacy, and then here we are.
Well, and other things that cause cognitive critical thinking, such as cursive writing. There's been a link with things that are that simple. Hand-eye movements, reading fiction specifically
Yeah.
keeps your mind more open, and storytelling, the theater, all those kind of things. And the more we've allowed the arts to be denigrated and eliminated, the more we're turning into stumps.
Sure,
A
and
society of doorknobs.
it's to put my neuroscience hat on just for a second. It's about neuroplasticity, the idea that the brain, you're not stuck with the brain you have, it can be changed. And the way that you do that is through experiencing and doing as many different types of things as possible. And so advocating for, like the things you're saying, literature and art and that kind of thing, that exposes you to other ways of thinking and other types of being in the world. And that causes your brain to think in different ways and make different neuronal connections and see the world differently. And that can be achieved, but it just has to happen. And that's why people, complain about representation in media so much, where if all of the shows and cartoons and movies and everything are just straight white people, then you get the society you deserve, to quote Joker or whatever the fuck that dumb shit he said in that movie. I don't know.
And interestingly enough, I had watched a video on YouTube today about the plasticity of the brain. I can't even believe you brought that up. I was like, wow, I guess I was accidentally doing research. I don't remember what it was. It was like, it's like a retraining your brain and some thought patterns and stuff like that. But it's very interesting. We think that we're set in our ways, and we have to be set in our ways from like I don't know, as soon as we are hit whatever physical maturity.
Yeah.
I don't, and that's bullshit.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's just
your brain is plastic, so you can it is, you know, if you do the same things over and over for a long enough time, you do strengthen those connections in the brain.
yep,
But that doesn't mean that those have to stay that way. It
right,
does mean it
right.
takes a lot of work to change it,
Hmm.
because it's you're exerting energy. I think it's like 20% of your physical energy exertion goes to your brain. So and the body, your body likes to maintain homeostasis, so it likes to keep all of your energy levels even. So when you are trying to learn something new, to study, or to change yourself, your behaviors, you have to exert more energy towards that, and that
Yep.
takes a lot of resources, and your body doesn't like that. So it is difficult to do, but your brain does have that capability.
Yeah, yeah. There was a few years ago when I was working for a school district, and which is kind of career death. You got to retro learn, and you stop learning stuff when you're way overqualified for your job. And I wanted to move out of that, and I had to reteach myself how to learn.
Yeah.
I did it, and it was not easy, and I felt extra stupid. And I took a, what do you call it, a continuing education class, and if I'd gotten a grade in it, I would have failed, but it served its purpose in teaching me how to learn again. And make yourself crazy, learn something new and scary. Let's make it acceptance. Since we're on gender. Um, so okay, so what do you have, either of you, and I know that this is you're going to be like, God, I hate you for asking this. Do you have advice for people who are starting to question their gender, like their performative, societally assigned gender? Do you have any kind of, I'm going to say advice, but do you have any advice that might make it, it's not going to be easy. It's never going to be easy, y'all. But that might give them more understanding, resources,
uh,
something.
I'm terrible
I
at advice.
know, I
Well,
told you,
as
terrible
far as
question.
as far as resources, I can't, like, if you, I know this is going on YouTube, I could send you a bunch of links to further, like, reading, if people want reading, watching videos, that kind of thing, if people want to check that out. So if you want, I'll send you those, and you can put them in the YouTube video. But I mean, I think obviously this is highly it depends on your situation. You know, it's going to be completely different for someone who is a kid that lives with like Mormon parents, to
Hmm.
someone who's a single 35-year-old adult with an IT job that can do whatever they want, right? So
Right.
you know, you can Google and YouTube stuff. What is gender? What is look for. Honestly, I don't have resources off the top of my head. Obviously, I like Judith Butler, but that's not like necessarily an accessible resource immediately, because it's really, she speaks in theory, which is how,
Yeah.
like, the way that that's how I understand the world. Like, initially I started out, I've always wanted to understand, like, why we do the things we do, why the world works the way it does, what makes up the contents of the world. um, and I started with sociology, and I just started reading sociology books of like theories of the self and theories of subculture and that kind of thing. Eventually, I ended up with finding philosophy to be what really kind of explained it to me. So I'm maybe not the best person to give advice to someone who doesn't want to spend a lot of time reading really dense literature, but I know there are so like Philosophy Tube, ContraPoints. I know she's controversial, but like I can't think of, there's a bunch of leftist YouTubers that talk about these kinds of things
Yeah, there's a
uh,
few.
in interesting ways, and I'll have to send you some links afterwards. But yeah, I mean, I guess don't be afraid to experiment as far as you can. Obviously, that's going to
Mhm.
depend on your situation. Don't put yourself in danger, right? These kinds of things are, I have to remember that thinking about these things is a privilege, right? Because I'm not worried about being homeless. I'm not worried about how am I going to feed my son tomorrow. Um, and when you're in those situations, it's kind of like, I guess, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but when you're in those situations, you just can't. Like, I guess
Right.
if I'm having serious panic attacks, or if I'm having a serious medical issue, I don't give a fuck about what my gender is. I just want to not die, kind of thing, right? I want to survive. So this
Right.
is, in a way, a privileged thing where we have, if you are in a position to be able to sit down and think about these things. But there are plenty of resources out there. I know in Chicago there's a coalition for LGBTQIA plus people, that has resources both to talk with people and to just read things online about gender and sex, that will sort of curate and explain the science in a way that you can understand without having to study science for like 4 years before reading some paper.
Right.
Um,
I have to look up words that you use frequently, Dan.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So
I'm really
nope,
bad
that's
about
okay. That's okay. I forget. I was reading some book and I don't remember what it was. Oh, it was a book about tarot, about an old book, whatever. It was a translation, and I love to look up a bunch of shit. So aside from that, what do you think? Is there anything that you wish you had done differently once you decided that you really needed to come out? I mean, I personally feel like there's so many things that we wish we did different in the past, that just talking about from when you're 8 years old and you did this little thing.
Mhm.
But since coming out, or when you were first coming out, is there something that you really wish that you had done differently, or something that you wish that you had known was coming and smacks everyone in the face?
Well, see, I'm generally very, I guess, zen about this kind of thing, where the way I view, like, I don't necessarily have regrets, because I accept that uh, the decisions and the opinions and the behaviors that I have in the moment are based on the resources available to me. And so if they are wrong, which certainly I've had very wrong opinions in the past, that's something that I claim and that I don't try to make excuses for, and then I try to make myself better, and then I try to move on. I learn from it and move on. So I don't necessarily have regrets. I would say that, it's, don't be too hard on yourself. Don't hold yourself to some idealized standard. I think that's something that happens a lot, especially in the internet age, where we see posts of trans people or queer people living amazing lives, and then we feel like my life is a complete shit show. There's something wrong with me, and we have to give ourselves grace and space to come into our own and to explore. And I think as long as you are constantly seeking new information and seeking to better yourself and trying to, examine, like, decolonize, right? Look at what are these internalized bigotries and inculcated behaviors that I've learned through the years because of how I was brought up, that are harmful to me because I'm applying them to myself, right? There's the joke on the internet about how people will say, I'll go online and say all bodies are beautiful and your tummy is beautiful and your double chin is gorgeous and I love the way you look, and then you look in the mirror and you berate yourself. So you have to kind of change the way that you think about yourself in that way. Therapy, I always will say, is a great tool, because you don't know what you don't know. And like the way that I've learned has just been kind of haphazard, trying to find things here and there. But if you go and talk to someone who's gone through the rigor of school and training and that can identify specific issues, they should, if they're a good therapist, be able to guide you through that process.
Right. And please be advised, you can fire your therapist if they suck, or
Yeah.
if they're just not right for you. Fire their
Yeah,
ass.
finding a good therapist is a process, I think, for most people.
Right. You
It's a
luck
thing.
into a good therapist usually. You have some bad ones but I recommend therapy for just being alive.
Yeah,
But I
everyone could
like
use
I like
therapy.
what you said. Some of that was great life advice. This is what I was able to do with what was happening at the time and the tools that were at my disposal at the time. And I think if people remind themselves that, especially when you're going through something that can be very traumatic, I mean, this can be very traumatic. This is still an extremely brave act and a very terrifying act to come out as non binary, trans, anything other than the mainstream norm. As much as we see on whatever social media people thriving, there's many people who are very much not thriving. So it's still such a brave act that you got to give yourself a break. And that really goes for just life,
Yeah,
you know,
and
for
I
especially for something like this.
and yeah, again, it depends on context. Like I have a lot of privilege that someone who is a person of color that is in a lower income bracket, you know, does not have, and
Yep.
you can't, you know, you have to give yourself. So many injustices in the world, and the system is stacked against certain people, and you know, it's find a community, find a support group if you can, friends who will rally around you and give you that.
Yes.
Especially now, like it's more important than ever since we're so isolated, and we don't see people in person.
Mm-hmm.
But again, cultivating that friendship online is also a privilege because that takes energy and time, and a lot of us are stressed and depressed and anxious,
Right.
and working too many jobs because our economy is shit, and
Well, and it takes internet and the tools to
yeah,
get to the internet, and
yeah,
not everybody has that.
yeah,
It does.
it's true.
It's a lot. It's a lot of privilege, and sometimes people are just trying to survive.
Yeah.
All right, so time for another song.
Next song. Yeah.
So we can all.
Let's
so
do
we
it.
can
I
all
have to pee.
cry. I gotta play with my bra some more. Excuse me.
Feel free. Yeah, so this song is Blue Heart by Dani, and I picked this again, sticking with the sort of personal life experiences theme. This was I'm really into neoclassical and, you know, like Helium Vola, that kind of thing. Quintal, like neo-medieval music. I'm a Renaissance fair nerd, that kind of thing. And this song, for a long time, has been a sort of, it's kind of cliche for spouses to have like our song, but this was kind of our song for myself and my spouse. It's kind of a love song, and it's from one of my favorite bands. So that's why I picked it.
Cold you felt, like a wooden door went through his head. But I found you, ran away with you, talked to you, saved you too. Day by day, more of us disappeared and turned to grey. Fell to ashes, took away your fears, smiles came back, no more tears. Cold you felt, like a wooden door went through his head. But I found you, ran away with you, talked to you, saved you too. Day by day, more of us disappeared and turned to grey. Fell to ashes, took away your fears, smiles came back, no more tears. Leave behind dusty backyards, come with me, for you and me, for heaven's sake. Take away those lost and poor years' sorrow. Blue heart, face the joyful eyes of your tomorrow. Blue heart, run with me uphill where sun has touched the sky. Blue heart. dark eye, taste your ruby blood, you hypnotized. Made me risk all what seemed wealth to me. Golden leaves got the key. From then on, sand could feed no rose will lose its thorn. All the valleys of this unknown land will stay green. Take my hand, deep dark eyes, taste your ruby blood, you hypnotized. Made me risk all what's in wealth to me. Golden leaves got the key. From then on, sand could feed no rose will lose its thorn. All the valleys of this unknown land will stay green. Take my hand, leave behind dusty backyards. Come with me, for you and me, for heaven's sake. Blue heart, take away those lost and poor years' sorrow. Blue heart, face the joyful eyes of your tomorrow. Blue heart, run with me uphill where sun is touch the sky. Blue heart, take away those lost and poor years' sorrow. Blue heart, face the joyful eyes of your tomorrow. Blue heart, fly with me and we will never say goodbye.
It's now normal. We're
Okay.
back.
I don't
All right.
know if I've ever heard that song before.
One of my favorite bands.
That album used to be one of my husband and mine road tripping albums, along with Sublime.
Mm.
Huh.
I'm not a Sublime fan. Sorry.
My
Me
husband's
either.
a huge Sublime fan. Like 40 Ounce to Freedom, and he's just like,
It's too happy for me.
sounds too happy. I don't care if it's about like drugs and abuse
Yeah,
and
no.
loss.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought that last Blue Heart song sounded pretty happy.
Melancholic, I would say, but all right, whatever.
I don't know if I ever heard it. It was with the
Lugubrious. Yeah.
band. That was not lugubrious. Too many BPMs.
Yeah.
It was pretty. All right, so I totally forgot where we were, what we were doing. Oh, you
I
know
can't
what?
believe we have 2 more tracks still.
Just
We can just
changing
play
the-
them. Just play them. It's fine. We'll just listen to it.
We
Doesn't
can-
matter.
We can just sit here and listen to music. Although, I saw something, Dani, that you had put on your, I don't know, Facebook, I'm sure, about how people who say that all you have to do to listen to be goth is listen to goth music and that makes you goth, but that there's so much more to the subculture that doesn't make sense.
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm not leading you into a trap. Honestly, I promise I'm not leading you into a trap. So for me, I'm one of those people who's like, it's a musically based subculture. But my caveat to that is you just have to love goth music, but you also have to support the goth subculture somehow. You have to participate and support the goth subculture. You can't just say, I listen to a lot of goth music, so I must be goth. It's like, no, that's not exactly what happens. Otherwise, there'd be an entire generation that is not Generation X, they'd be Generation Goth. So can you expand on a little bit of what makes it, I mean, while we've got you on this show, we might as well take advantage.
Sure, I wasn't prepared to talk about that, but why not?
No, that's what I said. Yeah, this is totally out of left field, and I'm not making a trap for you.
No, it's okay. That's fine. First, I always point people to the 4-video YouTube series playlist I did about this specific topic if you want to hear me really talk about it.
On Cemetery
yes,
Confessions
so,
YouTube?
Yeah. It's a playlist called What is Goth, I think, where I lay out my understanding of that.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, so yeah, goth music is what brought everything together. But when you look at like what is the content of the music, because you don't want to narrow it to such a niche degree where you're saying goth is simply this style of music, because there is content to the music. You talk about the influences, the artistic influences, the philosophical influences, the cultural influences that went into the creation, both of the lyrical content, but also the community that was built around goth. So I like you said, I think a participation is very important as part of what goth is. The way I understand goth, I never narrow it down to a single thing. I say it's a coming together of several different pillars of goth, and then you can have a they all kind of need to be there, but if you're more interested in one area or the other, that's fine. Like you can, that's your thing, is if music is your thing. But if you just listen to music and you never talk to another goth, like, are you really goth? You know? So my four are always like an appreciation of goth music, some sort of aesthetic deviance to align with the sartorial idioms of goth that are generally accepted, a embracing of darkness, because that always comes up anytime you watch an interview with people like, what is goth? People always use the word darkness. So some kind of whatever that means for you, like an appreciation of the macabre, enjoying gothic literature, finding beauty in the abnormal or the uncanny, that kind of thing. And then being an active participant in goth, sort of incorporating these behaviors and friendships into your life, these sort of rituals, right? Because they are rituals. Like if you've been to a goth club, you have this ritual where you spend time. Like for me, I'll put on goth music and then I'll do my makeup and I'll get dressed and I'll be texting my friends who are going, or I'll pick up a friend and I'll play goth music in the car, and it's like this whole ritualized thing where we culminates in this sort of sacred space of the goth club, right? So you're partaking in, and maybe that sounds like a pretentious way to phrase that, but like you're partaking in the community of goth. It's the same with people who would say goth is just a fashion. I think that's misguided, but I think saying goth is only music is also misguided, because there's a lot that goes into the culmination of the music. And if you just want to say it's just these songs, you're kind of making the subculture itself anemic in a way that it can be appropriated by other people. You know, everybody complains about the goth costume that you can buy from chain stores or whatever. And that's the problem with, if goth is only what you wear, then yeah, you're going to be able to sell goth. It's the same thing. If goth is only what you listen to, then record companies are going to be able to come along, find the formula, and sell goth. So it has to be more than just a sound, is what I was trying to get at.
And you know, I think that it's funny because I always talk about how you have to participate in the subculture, but I think that if you are participating in the subculture, some of that other stuff just kind of comes your way. And if you aren't drawn to some of those darker themes, if you're not drawn to some of the ambience, you're going to get bored as shit with the subculture, and you're going to grow out of it. So everyone you know who's grown out of it, that it was a phase, it's just not the same for them. They don't, like, if I never talked to another goth again, I would still listen to the music, and that'd be great, but I would still go for some of those darker themed things, as we call them, dark, kind of the things that are not necessarily considered mainstream beautiful or acceptable. And so it's kind of something that's still in you. And I personally, I think that the goth scene, for somebody who really participates in it, it attracts people that are already attracted to that. And they stay if they're not just trying to be like edgy and scary.
Well, I mean, you also have to leave room for people to experiment with their identity,
Right. Right.
to try on new things and decide, you know what, this isn't actually for me, and that's fine. And you can still have friendships with people and just not be part of that thing.
Oh yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that like, there's just, we, again, going back to the complexity, there's things that we just do stuff and we don't think about why we do stuff or what the importance of
Right,
that stuff
right.
is. And that's what I kind of, when I reference my YouTube videos, it's like I call it the homology hypothesis, where I try and pull and tease apart what those things are.
Mhm.
But there are these, this substrate, this inaction of participating, of doing these things that create goth. And I think it's this coming together of many different things. And it's complex, like across time as well, because you have in the 80s, goth wasn't a thing. People were just trying to do something artistic. And then in the 90s, you had a heavier emphasis on people saying, what this artistic movement was amazing. Now we have this sort of codified view of what goth is. So let's really hyper focus on that and make it really goth. And then for a while it was like, goth is always, that's another aspect. Goth is always looking not appropriating, but using ephemera from the past to recreate something new. So there was a big focus on like Victorian stuff, but then that changed over time, and so that's this constant renegotiation through interaction with others and shared spaces. That is what brings forth the goth culture. So I think what I'm trying to get at is just that goth is more complicated than just saying it's just a sound or it's just music,
Right. That's why I find it more appropriate to call it a musically based subculture, not a music culture alone.
There's no
I
denying.
mean,
Go ahead.
No, I just, there's a bunch of different musically based subcultures, and everybody is different, but there's a lot of, like in the 80s, people like it was an art movement, but you found that people that you talked to that participated had a lot of the same ideas or similar ideas. It wasn't like a bunch of cookie cutters.
Yeah.
So, it kind of was an unspoken thing. It was like an unspoken thing that it's more common to be atheist. It was an unspoken thing that it was more common to be left, liberal, whatever we're calling it, all the way over to Marx. Something
to
on
think
that
about
side of the
death.
spectrum.
Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
But
Because
think
that
about
was taboo.
Yeah, or broader society, like people behave in this way and expect this. Why do they expect that? I would like to not do that thing. And these are ideologies. These are norms. These are behaviors that are shared. And again, you go, like, they can differ from place to place. Like the political climate in Mexico is going to shape that scene in a different way than it might in Germany, right? But there are still going to be shared values and aesthetics and sounds that will make, if you travel from one place to another, you will still feel at home. You'll still feel a connection. You can sit down and talk about your life experiences with someone from somewhere else.
Yeah, I agree with that. Azzy, do you have anything to add? I just wanted to throw that in there, just because just because you posted it.
Yeah.
No, I don't really have much to add. Like, you two kind of covered all my bases, so I'm just sitting here like, I have
like,
nothing to add. All I'm gonna do
well,
is just repeat
let's
some
play the
shit
next
that
song.
you all have been
Let's
saying.
play the
Time
next
for that.
song. Then,
Okay.
then we'll come back and maybe genderify a little bit.
Yeah. So this next song, what do we got? Heavy breathing. Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this one I just threw in there because I wanted, the previous three songs were important to me a long time ago, and this was just meant to be a example of like what I'm listening to now, because there is so much incredible music being put out. So I wanted to have at least one song that represented like the creativity and the thriving goth music scene at the moment.
Right on. that's pretty.
Yeah, solid.
It was a good song. What was it? That song was nice.
All these songs were nice.
All right, so oh my God, I totally lost my train of thought. I have Monday brain, y'all.
It's Tuesday.
Y'all have, I mean,
Well,
yeah,
Thursday.
well,
It is
and
Tuesday.
well, because I haven't worked a job where I had MLK's birthday off in a long time, and so this was the first one in a while. You know, when you work at a job where you got to be available all the time, you don't
Yeah.
get to have some of those holidays. So I have Monday brain, and
I mean, I can just talk if you want. I can just talk about things.
What are you gonna
Sex
talk
and gender
about?
stuff. I don't know.
Oh, what have
I've
we
got
not
all
covered
night.
about sex and gender?
I have plenty of things
Well,
to
sex
say.
and gender are separate, don't you think? Sexuality and gender.
Well, very separate.
I think they're pretty separate.
Yeah, I mean, so do you want me to just talk about stuff?
I mean,
can just
I have
talk
a
about stuff.
comment.
Yeah.
I
would love to hear your
personally,
comment.
since becoming more accepting of my gender and, feeling more comfortable with who I am and all of that shit, it's kind of changed how I've looked at my sexuality.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't think those two things are discrete boxes. Really, I don't think anything are in discrete boxes. It's also been the same for me. Although I guess I came out as bi before I came out as non-binary. And that comes with its whole own set of stereotypes of like bi people can't make up their mind, or they can't be monogamous, or whatever stupid bullshit. But because for me everything comes back to the understanding and the breaking down of binaries. It sort of naturally leads to breaking down of binaries in every other area of my life, and sexuality is also part of that. And so it's like, be attracted to who I'm attracted to, and not worry about putting so much emphasis on what that person's gender is. It goes back to that sort of ontological thing of I don't think the world exists with two hard dichotomies, two forces that always are in opposition to each other, but that everything is a spectrum. And finding where you are in that spectrum is part of your life journey and can also change over time. You don't have to set yourself to one thing forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right,
Because
right.
like my sexual identity for a very long time has been asexual, and becoming more comfortable with myself as a non-binary individual and exploring what that means for me has had interesting effects in the fact that I've been told like, oh, it's just because you're getting older. It's a normal thing for biological
What?
females. And I'm just like, really? Because like I'm
What?
starting to feel sexual for the first time in my life, and what?
that is bullshit. Well, okay, that's
Yeah, I mean, I've found that like my sex life has definitely changed since I've embraced like being non-binary and what that means for how I interact with the world, and having sex is part of how I interact with the world. Also, I mean, in general, sex education in America is abysmal. So getting into that arena where you're getting into queer spaces, there is that sort of, hey, here's a bunch of information about how bodies work and how people find pleasure and the different ways of doing things. And so, but that's also like given me a freedom to behave and do things in different ways that I felt like I had to not do if I was cis. So yeah, it's definitely like it has the way that I have sex, the way that I am intimate with my spouse has changed in very exciting ways. Put it that way.
I guess it's kind of similar in with my husband. The way that we have sex has changed since we came out. It's in good ways, but it's just been odd because it feels like we never really communicated about it. But since I came out, we've been more communicative in various different ways. And
I think that's like a common experience in, well, at least for me growing up in a Christian community. It's like you don't talk about sex, and then you just kind of assume that people know how it works, and then but people don't, and then you end up in a marriage where like you're miserable all the time because you never have orgasms, and so that freedom, it can, it doesn't have to be gender. It can start with wherever it is in your life, but finding the place where you can free yourself of what you feel like your role is supposed to be in life, and realize it doesn't have to be that, opens you up to saying, I can explore all kinds of things, and there's a whole world of stuff out there to experience and try that I had been denying because I thought I had, at least for me, I had this sort of like moralistic, these things are somehow wrong, and so I shouldn't even think about it. But once I got past that and realized there's all kinds of things that are completely normal and natural and fun to play with, it changes a lot of things, including sex.
Yeah. Have fun with it. There's all sorts of people get really weird about sex and sexuality, like sex, the act of sex, the physicality of sex. They get really boxed in. Like it's got to be this way. It's like
maybe it goes back to that sort of like plasticity thing. You learn that you can break down one barrier and you can start breaking down others.
Well, like that sex always has the same end game. Everybody has an orgasm together, just like in the movies, and it's this perfect romantic thing. No. In my world, when I'm actually having sex, I've already won. I've already won. So I'm like, I'm doing it. I'm here. It's won. Bonus. Now what? Let's do something. But that's not necessarily the case, and I have found that the worst lovers I've had have been goal oriented. If I am that goal, if how my body reacts is that goal, my body's probably not going to do it.
Right. Yeah. Everybody's different. Like you have to, like you said, as you communicate, talk about what do you like, what do you not like, what's let's try. Do you want to try this? Let's try this. Like, did that not work out? Okay, let's try something else.
Right. And I think personally for me, a sense of humor helps. Yeah. Because if you think about just fun with it. If you think about the act, it's fucking hilarious, and the dumbass stuff you do. Like you can have the greatest sex of your life, and then you realize you've still got one sock on.
Yeah.
Or you find some article of clothing like somewhere unexpected between the mattresses. Something crazy happens. You don't even realize how you got on the floor from where you started before. I mean, it's funny. It's fucking funny. I mean, there's like fluids all over the place, and there's noises you don't expect.
Buzz Lightyear's up my ass for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah. There's just crazy. Anything could happen. I mean, there's things sometimes shooting out of you. It could go anywhere.
Yeah.
So a sense of humor, I think, and just a like, wow, I guess that didn't work out.
Yeah.
But we get ourselves all wrapped up in this performance anxiety that everything's got to be perfect all the time, and when really it should be just like, did you realize that your body did this? Do, and then do something and go. And they're like, holy shit. I mean, it's discovery. You are bundles of nerves all over your body. There's not just like one per person.
Yeah.
With many different things, and there's just many weird things that are just fucking funny to try.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just my philosophy. Okay, let's play the last song. Okay. We got to do it. We try to make sure we get all 5 songs. I don't think we've missed one yet. But
no, we have one more. Believe me, this is my one job. I am on it.
One job. As he's like, play the damn song and fall asleep.
Yeah, gotta go to bed. So this last song is just it's meant to like I mentioned before, VNV Nation, Assemblage 23. When I was getting into this scene, synth pop was the thing that people were doing. You know, I ran a DJ podcast for 12 years, and I was doing live DJing in the early 2006 to 2009 ish. And synth pop was kind of like my go-to thing. And so that melodic electronic music still has a soft spot for me. I don't really listen to it anymore, but I wanted to throw one of those in there just as sort of like a personal history thing. So that's what this song is.
No, I broke it, but I fixed it.
scared to understand. I can take and lead you through if you just hold my hand.
There you go.
I like that. You know, that's honestly, that's the kind of music that once I've been on the dance floor and I've been drinking for a while, you're not getting me back off.
Yeah.
I'll just keep
Yeah.
dancing until they turn the lights on. Good times. Remember going out?
Yeah. I kind of want to listen to more of that.
I'm just like, what was that again?
Alpha Point.
Oh yeah, I've never heard of them.
Just
Yeah,
remember, Michelle, how much you laughed at me when I made a face.
Did I make a face?
No, I didn't. You laughed at me.
Oh yeah, you did. I thought maybe I did too, because you never know. You know, I mean, you know, we don't know what's going to happen in this world, do we? Be kind to each other. Be kind to yourself, because you don't know, especially in these dark days of pandemic.
That was one of the jokes when we did our Patreon riff track for what the hell was that movie called?
My
My Summer is a Goth.
My Summer is a Goth, where it was like they go to a coffee shop at one point, and I was like, hey, remember when you could go to a coffee shop with your friends? And it was funny, but also very depressing at the same time.
Yeah. Well, you know, I don't want to say there's light at the end of the tunnel, because who the fuck knows? But,
I fucking hope so. Oh my God, please vaccinate me. I want to go to goth clubs and kiss people on the mouth. And
even getting a number for vaccination was a feeling of relief. Even though there's no, I mean, I have a number. I don't know how long it'll be to get to that number. It's not going to be this week, that's for sure. But having a number gave me an odd sense of security, because, you know, us white folks, something is stabbing the oh, it's a little bad. So I have a little
oh,
bat
you're
right
so
over
goth.
my little nipple there, and it's sewn on with my Bauhaus pin and my evil nun.
Hashtag
Anyway.
goth problems, bats stabbing your nipples.
I know, right? Getting stabbed in the tit because you're wearing a fucking mesh shirt and you're freezing your ass off and you can't sit still. But yeah, us rich white folks, we got to get our shots so all the marginalized people can get theirs. So whiteys, get signed up.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Where I live,
Well, you know,
they
it's-
haven't started rolling it out to anyone other than medical
Essential?
workers and 65 and up. I just
Yeah.
Texas
Yeah.
just went to 75 and up, like across the board, I think.
I just want my husband to be able to get a vaccine because he works in a grocery store.
Yeah.
Okay, that's so fucked up.
Yeah, it is.
And depending on, like, I see videos of, you know, where I live, everybody wears a mask for the most part. There's a few people here and there who have their fucking nose out.
That must
whatever.
be nice.
But I see,
I know,
yeah,
I was like,
I see
wow.
videos of, especially southern states, where you go to the store and no one has a mask on,
Texas
and
and
that
Florida.
horrifies me.
The grocery stores I go to, they have everybody has a mask on for the most part now.
The grocery store I go to, yes.
Yeah.
I was driving on a long drive and I stopped at the exit for Dinosaur World, which it's in Central Florida. It's whatever, but I stopped at a gas station because I really had to pee. And I'm like sitting in the car trying to map out where it is because the bathroom was closed, and like there are just people walking in and out and in and out and in and out, acting like it's every single day, like talking to each other, hugging each other. No one's wearing a mask, and I'm just like,
I ain't going in there.
the fuck is wrong with you people?
I realized when I went to the office how much I had to plan, because I have had the luxury. I've gone to chiropractor, doctor, pretty much is it. And I hadn't gone outside of the Denton city limits. So I had not been more than 6-7 miles from my home. So the thought that I made my coffee, because I left also at 6:30 in the morning to avoid people in traffic, which I was successful. But I made my coffee and drank it on the way back because I didn't want to have to pee. Because I didn't want to have to go to a public restroom, because I haven't had to worry about that because I've been working from home and I haven't had to go very far. And it was weird driving outside of Denton. I was like, why do I feel like Mad Max is about to happen at any moment? Why am I,
Yeah.
I was just like in the office. There were 2 people working in the office because, I mean, there were a total of 2. It was 7 o'clock in the morning. And luckily I didn't get closer than 8 feet away from them, but I was just scared the shit out of them. Even though we had an email inviting everyone down to the office because we have one office is closing and they're moving in with us. But yeah, we had to go down there.
We had a big Christmas party with my entire department of like 70 people.
Jesus fucking H.
Wow.
We had a Christmas party too, and it was on Zoom, and we all had to do. We did
You
a
did a
gift exchange,
luncheon.
and so we had 3 days. We had 3 days. Everybody brought their snacks and whatever they were drinking to their little Zoom, and we Amazoned gifts to each other.
Oh, see, that sounds so nice and safe and better than sitting in a room with 70 people eating a lunch with
Oh,
no
I
one
hated
wearing
that.
masks.
That's fucked up.
I'd have been in
So
the back with the mask, like lifting it up to eat, or just wait till I don't know. I went to my doctor's office though, y'all, and they've moved offices again, like with other doctors. And I go in, and the receptionist hands me a mask. She didn't want me to wear my mask. I have to change my mask with her bare fucking hand on the side of the mask. So I was like, I have to change. I was like, okay. I took it with 2 fingers. They gave me an unsanitized pen. I went out into the hallway because I carry my own spray, man. I carry my own like food grade. You can spray it in your fucking eyes, and I've done it, and I'm not blind, so it works. And I sprayed the mask on both sides, shook it a little bit, and then I switched masks. Now I realize I should have just done the same thing and just put it over my mask. But yeah, I went out in the hallway because there were 5 people sitting in that waiting room. I was like, I'm not going to take off my mask with other people around. I was like, I've had a near fatal lung disease. I've had one of the really huge identifiers, so I'm just being as safe as I can. Luckily, I can work at home, so I don't have to worry about it. But that was my doctor's office, y'all. That freaked my shit right out.
Yeah, I have to go to the doctor's office for a heart thing, and I don't smoke anymore, but I have smoked, and it just it gives me so much anxiety thinking about, being in a hospital where COVID is.
Oh yeah, yep.
And like you've seen, people have shared the articles about this is what your lungs look like after COVID with all the scarring and
Yes.
everything.
Mhm.
And I am absolutely terrified of having to. I feel like that's something you have to live with for the rest of your life.
Yeah. If you survive it, yes. Yeah, that's what they're saying is that people are like, well, it's only 1 or 2%. I was like, the law of large numbers.
Yeah.
We're seeing it every day.
Yeah.
But also, like 40% of people who go to the hospital have what is such a long-term healing that it's considered permanent. So stay home, wear your fucking mask, wash your hands,
Get on the
After you
internet,
get your
read about
vaccination-
sexuality and gender.
right? Get online and watch us make asses of ourselves. And after you get your shots, continue to wear your fucking mask and wash your hands.
Yeah.
We've got another 1.5 years of this having to be safe. We will be able to do things. We will be able to go places and be places, but we still have to not be
Yeah.
stupid fuckers.
Yeah.
So yeah, I saw I forget what I saw. Somebody's having some kind of a concert, goth night, something somewhere.
I've seen more of those in Chicago, like goth concerts popping up, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah,
I think
same
we've
with
got
Miami
one
and
coming up
Orlando.
soon in Dallas. Yeah, I had somebody. I feel like was it Dark Night? One of the goth nights, because Dallas has a shitload. Actually, has a shitload of goth nights. We have like 4, and one of them actually did have a physical goth night. There have been 2 that I've seen so far. The church tried it once, and they showed the pictures, and everybody was like 6 feet apart. They were very far apart. But I don't believe they're still doing them live. They're hopefully getting enough tips as DJs or venues to stay open. But yeah, so now I'm
I mean,
depressed.
it's gonna completely change the landscape of not just normal life, but
Yeah.
subcultural stuff.
Yeah, so one thing that y'all can check out for the venues that have shows or goth nights or anything to try to help them out is see if they have t-shirts and merchandise, because I was able to buy some t-shirts and merchandise, which is kind of helping keep one of our club's 3 links open because they don't necessarily have a full kitchen. If they have a full kitchen, you can do curbside, whatever. But anyway, just saying. So I think it's time to wrap it up because we're all starting to wilt. And I've been freezing my ass off for 2 hours now, 2.5
Aw.
hours. So, well, it was my choice. I was like, I stuck my hand in a pile of black stuff and I pulled out this mesh shirt And I was like, I haven't worn that because in the summertime it's sweat.
That's
It's
how
not
I
like
get dressed
fishnet.
most days.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, right.
The pile of mystery, yeah.
Right. The pile mystery doesn't usually have something that I won't wear in the summertime because all it is itchy static cling. It's getting static clingy though.
Yeah.
But anyway, so thank you so much, Dani, for your effervescent light and knowledge and sharing with us, which was something that is it's kind of still a touchy subject for, well, a lot of people, and it can be difficult to discuss, which is what we discuss on this show, is stuff that's generally pretty difficult to discuss, I guess. We like it. Me and Azzy are gluttons.
What?
You know what? I'll text you about it tomorrow.
What?
I said me and Azzy are gluttons. We're gluttons for,
Oh,
I
I thought you said
but
buttons, and I'm like, what?
You are tired.
Yeah, I'm a little tired. I gotta be
Yeah,
up
you're wiped.
in like 5 hours.
Well, thank you for
Oh.
having me.
Oh,
I
we
love
appreciate
both of
being on the
you
show.
so much. You're wonderful friends.
you're so
And this
kind.
this was a lot of fun. I'm really glad to have been on, and I appreciate you thinking of me. So.
Well,
again, thank you for sharing your vast knowledge. What?
Yeah, we've been wanting to get you on for a while. We just
Yeah,
needed the
yeah.
perfect topic.
Right. And there always is one. So we jumped on it. So
We
hey,
didn't
this
talk
is
about
us.
asses. What are you talking about?
I thought that we gave you some openings there.
Ooh!
There's an opening there, I'll tell you.
Well,
It's
we know you
gaping.
have an opening. We know.
Yeah.
We know.
It's like a slip and slide down there. It's
Well, that'll be the next time you're on. We'll call it the Assquisition.
As it should be.
Okay.
As it should be. The body's biggest nerve bundle. Buttholes. Tasty. And on that, so thank you to everyone, and good night.
Good night.
Please do connect us, Azzy, before we embarrass ourselves.